Hi everyone, it's Sam and Matt here from Ripped Body. Today, we're going to give you the answers to the most common questions we get around the topic of you're doing everything, but you're just not seeing the progress you want. We're going to give you what to look for, what to avoid, how to fix it without losing your mind. So if you've ever felt stuck or thought your body moves may be broken, this episode will 100% help you understand what's really happening and give you a simple way forward. Matt, how is your cut going?
Oh, it's going pretty good. I probably got another week or two left of me. I'm going to wrap it
Okay.
up soon. I'm just feeling tired all the time. No, it's good. I don't remember how long ago we talked, but I've probably cut like maybe 8 pounds or so. As part of that, like we were talking about recovery, I'd sort of cut my training back to 4 days a week. I don't recover too well anyway. I'm usually like really sore and stuff, so I cut the volume back. But a little bit off topic, we got a crazy new gym that just opened up here in Vegas that I joined right down the street from my house. I love working out. I know a lot of people don't really, it's kind of something you have to do. I actually truly love going to the gym. I want to go a lot more than just 4 days. So like, I'm done. I'm done with this cut. I want to eat more so I can train more, enjoy this gym.
I think I saw it on your
well.
stories. It looked really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm exactly the same. I live in quite a small area, but we just had it's like a more powerlifting gym that's opened up nearby me.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
I can't do many powerlifting moves anymore because I'm a beaten up old man. But I loved going and seeing other people do it. In this day and age, I feel like where everything's quite cold, commercial, it's nice to have gyms with character and some specificity. So yeah, I'm with you on that. I love to train. I'm nursing a neck injury at the moment. It's a reoccurring one. So I've gone from training 5 days a week, 3 upper body sessions, 2 lower body sessions, to doing 3 lower body sessions and 1 upper body. I'm going to look a bit silly for the rest of this year, but I love training and it gives me routine, like structure to my week. I don't know about you, but I anchor my working days around my sessions. So I want to keep that in. For you, Matt, how much are you down in total since you started?
Okay, since we talked, I kind of did a slow cut over the summer. I intentionally was like, like living in Vegas, there's a lot to do in the summer if I want to have, like we talked about what not to do, but I was okay with having more indulgences, a bit of slower progress. I'll probably cut about 20, 25 pounds over the summer. So not the fastest cut, but pretty good for me. I thought about going a little bit further. I'm probably around like 14, maybe 16% body fat. So I could get a bit leaner, but I'm done. Yeah, I just need a break. I don't want to keep going right now.
You definitely look leaner in the face than when we last spoke. Like I can see it. You look like you're about to start entering the phase where it's going to start sucking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I would imagine
save that for next summer.
It's been an enjoyable process, right? For the most part.
Yeah. It's like the last bit. I can see a little bit of some of the abs there, but not shredded. But that push at this moment heading into the holidays, like after going all summer, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. This, people, listeners and watchers, is why you need a strong why to get beyond that point, because Matt doesn't have one right now, which he's absolutely okay with. So yeah,
like it's great if you have the photo shoot or during the summer when it's warmer, obviously, but I don't have a strong motivation to keep dealing with the hunger and low energy as we're about to hit like November. Like it's not there for me.
I feel you. I am now 14. This morning I was 14.5 pounds above my photo shoot weight. I'm still pretty lean. Like, I mean, I needed to add 5 pounds on just to not die within a few weeks.
Yeah.
So to be 14.5 pounds up 3.5 months later, I've had a holiday in there. I'm feeling pretty good. Just need my neck to be better so I can start pushing up, because this is the first time I've said this in any kind of public domain. And I've been thinking about it and I'm putting it out there to see if anyone wants to email me or comment below with what their thoughts are. Because if you see my pictures, I'm in okay shape. I'm not the biggest guy, but if you know Christian Guzman, Matt, I don't know I've always wanted to do like a summer shredding, like one of the proper ones. So I'm thinking if I can get my neck sorted, that in 2027, I'm going to fly out to Houston to do one of the shows in men's physique.
Nice.
Yeah, because I've always wanted to. I was like, if I can give myself a long enough stretch to gain and then cut for 4 or 5 months, I think I can do it. So summer 2027 is what I'm thinking.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's a cool show. I love bodybuilding. I've always followed at the shows. I love the sport. Like I'm in a bodybuilding gym here, but the summer shredding is a cool event. That would be awesome.
I just know that I would humiliate myself going onto a proper stage. Not to say that Christian's summer training events are not proper, but I know that it would be a bit more my speed, shall we say.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That's a good goal.
Yeah. I just thought I can fill the listeners in on what's been going on in our world. But yeah. So Matt's coming up to the end of his cut. I'm going in the opposite direction. I'm pounding on the pounds. We get this question all of the time. This whole, I'm doing everything right, but the scale just isn't moving. It's one of the most frustrating feelings, right? You're eating clean, you're hitting your workouts, you're getting your steps in, you're walking more, you're doing all of these things, but nothing seems to change. So Matt, what would you say is one of the biggest questions we get around this topic?
I think it's just people trying to figure out what to do when they stall out. This happens a lot with clients. So people will say, I'm tracking my food, I'm not missing any workouts, I'm getting my steps in, I'm doing my cardio, whatever it is, but I'm not losing weight. Why? What's happening?
I would say that it's not people trying to be dishonest, right? They genuinely think they're doing the right things. And this generally comes to tracking errors. So I would say that I'm pretty experienced at this. I've been doing it 15 years, like tracking macros, tracking calories. Even I make the odd mistake here and there, whether it's weighing something, not doing it accurately, or weighing something raw when it should have been cooked, or even just not counting some oils, sauces, even some drinks. So I would say the biggest one is like small tracking errors. And I think we're all susceptible to it. So if you've been doing this a couple of years, less than 5 years, and you feel like you're doing everything right when it comes to tracking, but nothing's moving, I think you can be pretty certain that tracking's inaccurate, but I don't know what your experience is, Matt.
Yeah, I agree completely. I'm the same. I've been tracking food on and off for 10 years, a long time. And yeah, it's just really, really hard to be accurate if you're not measuring things, weighing things out. Like you said, I think the sauces, condiments, that can really get you. And yeah, I would say this obviously, everything we're talking about is assuming that like your calorie target is appropriate. There are times you may just need to lower your calories sometimes, but a lot of times the calories are low enough that we would expect things to be happening and they're not. So this is kind of what we're talking about. But yeah, I think tracking is the biggest one for sure. And I've been there too, where I think I'm doing things right and I'm pretty confident it's accurate, but if I really lock in and try to be super precise, I'll often find things that I'm just not being very precise with.
Yep, 1000%. What else?
Aside from that, the second one would just be having, this is mainly going to be on the weekends for a lot of people, but having these kind of off-plan things where you go out to eat. Maybe you're just not tracking for a night, you have a social thing, something for work, whatever it is. And even if you try to guess at what you're doing, the odds of you having an accurate food log if you go out to eat is just pretty low. And unfortunately, having one day or even honestly one meal or kind of half a day off track can really throw off your whole week. If we are aiming, I think the most common thing we'll set for people is trying to lose like a pound per week. That's a good target for a lot of people, which is roughly going to be a 500 calorie deficit per day. You can easily wipe that out. I think if you have a day off track without realizing it, and even if it feels, oh, it's just one day and the other 6 days I was on point, that one day can really wipe out a lot of your deficit. Maybe not the whole thing, but a really good chunk of it and really slow you down.
I could not agree more. And I want people to just contextualize this. If you go out to a restaurant and you've had your normal meals for the day and you've allowed yourself 600 to 800 calories for dinner and you think you tracked the main meal correctly, but then you go, hey, I've been really consistent recently, I'm going to enjoy dessert. Dude, if you're at the Cheesecake Factory and you have a cheesecake, that could be a day's worth of food.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that context, if you don't have that awareness of what's in things, especially because those slices are not even that big. I can put away cheesecake. I'm speaking from personal experience where if you don't like lock in those moments and just have some level of awareness, not only could you wipe out the day's calories, if you have a couple of those slices, that could be the week's deficit gone.
Yeah.
Yet it might not even feel like it in your stomach, in the gut content. So yeah, having one untracked meal out can absolutely erase a week's deficit if you're not careful. And then leading straight off of the back of that is, well, that leads to then this scale confusion where you then get these wild fluctuations from the additional sodium, the water, the glycogen, just more food in your gut. And that starts to throw you off because you've been great all week. You have this one meal and then the scale weight trends up for a couple of days and you think you've gained all that body fat back, but that's not happening, right, Matt?
Yeah, definitely. And I think for me, even if I know that, I've done this myself sometimes, you see the scale go up for a few days and it can take a bit to settle back down. Not only can it mess with your head, it just can throw off the data a little bit. It's hard to see what's actually happening. If you constantly have these weight spikes every weekend, it makes the whole thing very messy, I would say. I think mentally too, it can be frustrating. Like talking to so many clients in the past, like even if it's just like your Friday night, if you feel like, or even if you did like put in the effort and you stuck to your plan the other 6 days, you've like mentally been putting in the work to diet for the whole week and then you just undone it with one night. So it can be frustrating.
Yeah. And then you look at it and you go, was it worth it? Like,
yeah.
Sometimes it is. And as coaches, we go like, hey, have that conversation with your client. Is that an event was worth it? Was it a wedding? Was it a 50th birthday? Was it, your child's first birthday? Of course, the calories don't count on those days, guys. Yeah. But if it was a random night out with work colleagues, then you're thinking, well, is the juice worth the squeeze at that point? And it's something to think about. And I think, when you're inaccurate with the tracking, you are then having these one-off meals and then you're having this scale confusion off the back of it. Comes down to having that sort of, if you're missing one day per week, it might halve your progress. So think it's just one of those things where make sure what you're actually tracking is accurate. Make sure that you are consistent across the entire week. And if you're not, and you do have that setback, not to let that confusion on a scale become confusion in your head around what to do next and just getting back straight on track, really. I'm sure we've all had clients where that's been the case. Have you had any recently where, I don't know, do you find, Matt, that people are pretty consistent, or do they eat out quite regularly? How does it work for you?
Yeah, definitely a lot of the clients that I have, we work with a lot of busy guys, and a lot of it, I mean, everyone's busy, but a lot of these guys are traveling for work a lot. Sometimes it's traveling for vacation or a lot of client dinners and things we can't really control it. And it's kind of something that it's difficult to avoid, but yeah, I think it's good to be aware of how much of an impact it can have. I really like what you said too about like having your progress. I think if you look at it that way, a lot of people want to have their weekends or have this, I don't want to call it a cheat meal. They want to have an untracked meal here and there. But if you look at having your progress like that, like, yeah, it can be a nice break at the end of the week. But if your goal, maybe you want to lose 10 pounds, that could be done in 12 weeks. But if you're doing this every week, now you just stretch that time. You have to diet to like 24 weeks. I mean, it may not be worth it. You know, it's a lot longer going to be in this dieting mode if you're having these little things here and there. I think it's good to think about if you're debating whether or not to go off track or what to do this weekend. Like, it could be adding up or adding a lot more time to your plan than you realize.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a good way to summarize that is this process of getting in shape, losing weight, prioritizing yourself. It's rarely about, I need to do more or try harder. It's where can I be more accurate and cause myself less stress, both during the process and also with actually having consistent results.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. All right. So before we move on, one thing I know that we've said is we look at scale weight as just one measure of progress. It's not the only thing. And we both have seen plenty of times clients who are losing inches, they're seeing visual change. Maybe they're making good progress in the gym, but the scale is not changing at all. That's pretty common. But what are some reasons that could happen and like why we want people to understand the scale is not the only thing you need to be measuring?
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a fantastic point. I think when you're seeing measurements go in the right direction and photos are looking leaner, but you've been indoctrinated for decades that the scale weight has to go down and it's not, I think the first thing to pay attention to is the fact that you're probably not eating the same way that you were when you tried to diet before, where you do these crazy things. You've probably replaced a lot of the lower density foods that you've been eating. So like the quote unquote junk food, right? The food that we wouldn't want to be prioritizing the most. If you've replaced that with lots of whole food, fiber, fruits and vegetables, that's going to take up a lot of room in your stomach. Right.
Yep.
So you've got more gut content, but whilst that is not reflecting as progress on the scale, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be losing body fat. And it usually just takes a week or two for the scale to catch up anyway. So that's definitely one area. What else could be impacting the scale weight?
A big one I see is just water retention. And this is often from high stress or poor sleep. I would say both of those things can cause a lot of water retention. So if someone has been maybe just under a lot of stress at work for a few weeks, this is one I hear all the time. Like, work's been really busy for a few weeks, not sleeping well, staying up late. They may just be holding some water. People who travel a lot as well, like flying often messes with your body composition a bit and causes some water retention. So, you know, if someone's been on a 2-week trip and then they come back and they're trying to get back in their sleeping routine and their sleep's a bit off because of the jet lag, there could be a chunk of a few weeks where everything is just kind of a mess with water retention and sleep and stress like that. That can definitely impact things like water retention for sure. High stress can mess with your digestive system a little bit. So maybe you're just a little bit like backed up. You haven't gone to the bathroom much. There are a lot of things that can show up that are not directly related to body fat that can still show up on the scale.
Yeah, I completely agree. The travel one's a big one. If you're a frequent flyer, if you've got edema in the ankles, I get that quite badly. The added water retention, the inflammation, for sure. If you travel frequently, then if anything, I would probably just choose not to weigh in on the day of the flight because it's bad data. Like, it just skews the averages and we know it's not useful. That's what I would do. But if you're traveling like 3-4 days a week, you haven't got much of a choice, in which case it's actually good data because it's consistent. So that means if you're losing, then you'll be losing at a different rate relative to the weigh-ins that you do. The other one, which is maybe less likely, but still a factor to consider, is body recomposition. We do work with a lot of people that are maybe deep. They used to train when they were in high school or college. They're getting back into lifting and therefore their body's like, I remember you used to be in really good shape. Let's get you back to that really quickly. And so you have this effect where you can drop 10 pounds of fat and build 5 to 6 pounds of muscle in a handful of months because you're just getting back what you'd lost. So in that situation, the scale weight is going to do some weird and wonderful things, which makes photos and measurements even more important, because if you're losing centimeters around your waist, but your arms are growing or your chest is growing, your legs are growing, it's the clearest sign that we've got some body recomposition happening.
All right. Another one that comes up a lot, I think, especially with our clientele, the type of people we tend to work with, is the idea of hormones. So a lot of people think it may be their hormones is why they're not losing weight, especially these days. I don't know where it is for you here in the US, especially here in Vegas, which is a very big fitness place. There are so many ads and clinics for like, oh, like low testosterone and thyroid and like medical weight loss. And that's anti-aging clinics where they're really just kind of giving you whatever hormones you want. That's super common. I hear this all the time. I don't know
Yeah,
if you do as well or what you would say to that.
it's not as prevalent in the UK, but it's certainly getting that way. I've started to get ads more recently. I know in the United States, C's been around for a long time. You could just go buy it. In the United Kingdom, you have to be prescribed, you have to be below a certain amount of testosterone to even be eligible to have TRT. So yeah, it's definitely something that comes up with clients, especially as they're sort of getting north of like 35, 40, especially with a lot of our clients. Like, we're not necessarily the first place they've come to. They've usually tried other approaches, other styles of training, of dieting before they come to us, where they're ready for a more sustainable long-term view of their health and fitness goals. They've been missold this idea that they need to boost their testosterone to increase their fat loss or increase their muscle gain. But in the vast majority of cases, anything that's related to your testosterone is more of a reflection of what your current lifestyle is like and what your current body composition is, as opposed to that being the reason it's like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Even like, so you're talking about getting ads. We have the ads here all the time on social media. Like, oh, TRT delivered to your doorstep. And it's always the same thing. Like, oh, do you feel overweight and fatigue all the time and you're not feeling good? Like, a lot of that stuff is just lifestyle things, like you said. Yeah, it could be a symptom, but also those things could just probably be causing it, I think, or having a big impact on it for sure. So
Yeah.
it makes sense. People are confused. Oh, I'm tired. It must be low testosterone.
Mhm.
Maybe you're tired because you're not sleeping well, and that's the issue.
Right. This is what
Yeah.
I mean. It's easy to blame this other thing that's
Yeah.
really hard to quantify unless you're at your doctor's,
Mhm.
right? And if you genuinely think you've got any of the symptoms related to low testosterone, go to a medical professional, have the tests before you go down any kind of mindset of it's this reason why I can't lose weight or get in shape, and taking the ownership away from personal responsibility. I've been doing this a long time. I don't think I've actually come across any client that's had a like medically low testosterone that's prevented them from losing weight or building muscle. It's nearly always they are chronically undersleeping, so they're always under recovered. They're highly stressed. They don't eat a high protein diet, and they yo-yo between having periods of super low calories, super high calories. And so if you're going through that cycle, I don't know how you can expect any kind of progress. Whereas if you get those ducks in a row and you start seeing results, suddenly you'll feel like, testosterone is not really the problem anymore, or any other hormone for that matter.
I agree. Yeah, like you said, all of those things tend to cause low testosterone. And yeah, like you could go on TRT and boost yourself back up, but it doesn't really address the actual problem. And if you still have these poor sleeping patterns and you're like stressed all the time, you're still not going to feel great.
Such a good point.
What would you say to someone? We would probably help our clients with this, but if someone came up to you like, I think I've been doing everything right, pretty sure I've been doing this consistently for a few weeks, but I'm not seeing any results. Would you say right away, oh, you need to change something, decrease your food, or is there things you would look at first?
Yeah, I think for us at Rip Body, there are going to be two key areas we check before we make any adjustments. And then there's a protocol we have in place for when we've checked those areas and then we make an adjustment. So I know that, Matt, you will agree with me that the very first thing we do is check all of the data available to us. A lot of clients will instantly go, oh, you mean the scale weight? And we're like, yeah, the scale trend is certainly one metric we'll track, but it's not the thing that we will make all of our decisions based on. We will look at measurements across all different sites. I don't know about yourself, Matt, but primarily for me, when it comes for body recomposition or more so fat loss, which most of our clients are after, I look at the measurements above the belly, across the belly, below the belly, and hips. If those measurement sites are falling, like week on week trending down, but the scale weight is holding steady, I'm happy. How do you view that?
Oh, exact same way. Yeah. Like you said, the scale can be a good indicator, but I think measurements are more important, or even how people feel. Like I've had like word for word clients tell me like, I'm not really losing weight, but like I could feel my pants are a bit looser. Like I kind of had to tighten my belt a bit. So I think I'm okay. It's not always just the scale.
Yep. And progress photos, right? Like at Rip Body, we do these monthly just because we find that it gives clients a long enough time to really see a difference month to month. And quite often the scale weight doesn't actually move that much. And this comes back down to like data accuracy. If the data being tracked isn't accurate on the measurements, and then we get the photos back and it's like, how have your belly measurements not come down in the last 4 weeks when you look like a different person? And so then we're just like, okay, if we've got a good relationship with the client, which obviously we do, and we trust them and they trust us, the scale's not moving, the measurements aren't moving, but they're telling us they're doing everything right. It's like, okay, let's wait for the next round of photos. And now if the photos show us progress, we know adherence is all good. If the photos don't show us progress, we know there's an issue with the measurement of food, the measurement of the amount of steps they're doing or something like that, in which case we then need to check adherence, right? When we're looking at adherence, Matt, what are we looking for in terms of percentages?
I would say aim for like 90 to 95% would be really good. So the way we do this is we look at your weekly calorie target, right? So obviously you want to try to hit every day. It's best to be more consistent, but really if it's a little bit high one day, a little bit low, it's not a huge deal. But over like the course of a week or 2 weeks, what is your target calories and how much have you actually consumed? So this may not be applicable to everyone's numbers, but for easy math, if you're aiming for 10,000 calories a week and you ate 9,500, you'd be at like 95% adherence. Whereas if you ate 12,000, we would have you put like 120%. Like you overshot by quite a bit there. So we want to see close, pretty good adherence there. I would say for sure with the calories, making sure you're getting enough protein, making sure your step count is pretty consistent, which is just a kind of an indirect way to measure activity outside of the gym.
Yeah, for sure. I like the way we do these things is not about absolutes. It's not about absolute perfection. Right. And I don't want to ever get anyone confused by this. We're not looking for someone to come in and be a 10 out of 10 across the board.
No.
That would tell me you're probably lying. Okay.
Yeah.
Because none of us are, but also we're not robots. Our clients tend to have families. They're working 40, 50, 60-hour weeks. They're traveling a lot, like Matt said earlier, that they have other things to take care of. It would be super strange if someone had 100% across their calories, across their protein. They were hitting 10,000 steps a day. They were training 5 times a week. It's just not who we help. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You might need to do that if you're trying to do like a photo shoot or a bodybuilder, but your average person, you don't need to be 100% every single day. No, it's not realistic.
Let's assume then that one of our clients has been stuck for weeks, a couple of weeks. We won't let them go too long. They've been stuck for a couple of weeks. The metrics haven't changed. We're satisfied that they're being 95% adherent. What's the decision-making framework that you go through, Matt, to start getting them moving again? Because we might be a little bit different on this. So I'm actually kind of super keen to see what you would do.
So if we know that they're being consistent and things are not moving, assuming they're trying to lose weight, I know that we need to create a bigger calorie deficit. And the two main ways we could do this would be to decrease food intake. That's the easy one, or increase their activity level. I'll typically look at the subjective feedback we ask for. So with our clients, we ask them to rate how they're feeling in terms of stress, sleep, hunger, fatigue, any cravings they're having. And I'll ask about that as well. So if someone has stalled and we know they're being consistent, I trust they're being accurate with their stuff, and they're like, yeah, I'm not really that hungry, I'll probably decrease the food. On the other hand, if someone's already really hungry, they're having a hard time with food, maybe that adherence percentage has been kind of tough and they're kind of struggling to stick with their target already, it may be more realistic to try to add, more steps to the day, whether that's going a couple more walks, maybe doing a little bit of cardio sessions, things like that. It really depends on their schedule, I would say, and how they're feeling food-wise. So we'll have a little discussion for whichever is more realistic. Some people prefer to add more activity. Some people would rather, if they're really busy and they can't get more steps, or if they're already doing 10,000 steps a day, we might have to adjust the food. But honestly, I try to make that decision with them. I'll make a suggestion. We could decrease your food, or we could try to increase your steps because they're kind of low. What do you think would be more realistic? I always try to get them involved a little bit, but yeah, I tend to look at hunger for sure. Hunger, cravings, energy, and then how many steps they're already getting to see if there's an obvious place we could make a change.
Yeah, I personally really enjoy the fact that we get to have a conversation with the client about what variable they want to change. And I would say it's one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make when they're not being coached. It's, I'm going to change my calories, my steps, and I'm going to do cardio, and I'm going to add an additional gym day. You've just thrown the baby out with the bathwater. You've changed so many things at once that your body has no choice but to adapt. That's great. But what do you do a month from now when that adaptation's taken place and now you plateaued again 6 weeks later? It's being methodical. It's making sure that you're making the most efficient adjustment with the most amount of leverage. That's why my preference is nearly always to reduce calories. And we all have a bit of personal bias on this, but I've always used the analogy it's easier to just not eat the Snickers bar than run for half an hour to burn it off.
Yeah.
It's just easier. And especially from a time perspective, when you're deciding which variable to change, and with the coach's hat on that, when you know that it's probably better for them to maybe reduce calories, but they opt for doing more activity, even though you know they're really busy and they're probably not going to do it. I would be super interested to know how you would navigate that.
Yeah. So more often than not, I agree with you. It's going to be food. It's rare that it's not. There have been a couple of times where I've looked at someone's activity and their weekly average steps are like 3,000 or less. In that case, I'm okay. You're really not moving much at all. It's kind of hard to keep your steps that low, to be honest. So we could probably bump this up. Yeah. Most of the time it is going to be food. But if someone wants to add more activity, honestly, the first thing I'll tell them is we still want to watch the step count. Sometimes people will try to go on walks. A lot of times people will just say they want to start adding some cardio sessions in or some cardio after the gym. That's great. But you still want to make sure that you're not doing like a high intensity cardio session or you go do 20 minutes of cardio and then you sit the rest of the day to make up for it. I know there have been some research looking at like energy compensation and how you could go on a long run, but then just decrease activity the rest of the day. I would still really look at the step count because I think that comes up a lot. Probably just with fitness, you hear a lot of people doing like cardio, fasted cardio or post-workout cardio or, walk on the treadmill for 20 minutes after a lift. And that's not bad, but we still want to look at what you're doing over the whole day. So
Yeah.
don't add 20 minutes of cardio after your workout if it means now your step counts, it's the same. We're kind of dropped a bit because you're tired after that. But that's the conversation I have. If someone wants to start adding more activity, just make sure that it's kind of spread over the day if possible. And I would suggest doing it and still looking at your step count rather than just doing 20 minutes on the bike in the morning because we don't really know how much that's going to impact your total calorie output. It might be beneficial. It might not.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to echo what you said because I think it's important that listeners or watchers of the podcast understand that if you come or if you apply for working with us and we start working together, it's not like a drill sergeant routine with us. It's not like our way or the highway. We've got our evidence-based decision-making frameworks that we go through when we're making adjustments to clients' progress to make sure that you don't get stuck for weeks. It's a conversation. And something that Matt said, I started smiling a lot because it really reminded me of a client recently where he's super busy. He's got a family. He is chained to his desk all day. And he was routinely getting 3,000 to 4,000 steps a day. Okay. And he is light. So his calories were low. I'm talking like 1,700 calories for a meal. But he was getting very, very lean. And I said, look, I work with a lot of guys who are very, very busy. They work from home and I'm going to send you a link to something that I recommend you purchase. And he brought a walking pad. Now, do you know what these are, Matt? Like a walking pad, yeah?
Yeah.
So the back end of his diet, and we were on the home stretch. So for the last 4 weeks, his step count went from 3,000 to 4,000 to 8,000 to 10,000. I had to bump his food up to stop the rate of loss going out of the range that we were requiring. And he is now shredded just because he doubled his step count, but added no issues to his day because he could do it in between meetings. He never had to leave his office. And now we're at a point where he's in the absolute best shape of his life and we're now moving into maintenance. And I just think it's important to understand that you have choice in the variables that you shift. But like Matt is saying, and like I'm saying, if it's very obvious to make the change to one variable like that, where the steps are so low, please pick that one.
Yeah.
Don't cut your food to below 1,500 calories as a male if your steps are not at least 8,000. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I agree. That's awesome. And the walking pads are a great tool. They're great.
I've walked my way through 2 now in the space of 5 years because the weather in the UK is absolutely atrocious all year round.
Yeah,
and I refuse to get wet when I go on my walks.
Yep. Yeah, it just makes it easy.
Absolutely. We've spoken a lot about the changes that we would make when someone says they're doing everything they can, they're being super adherent, they're tracking everything, but things aren't moving. How long do we recommend, Matt, that people should wait before they look at actually changing any of these variables?
At least 2 weeks. So we actually say if someone's just starting with us, or if anyone listening is just starting, you're just starting getting more training or starting a new diet, you probably want to give it at least 4 because there's going to be a lot of fluctuation in the beginning. The first week or 2, you could have some weight shifts and stuff. But assuming you've been consistent with things and you make some sort of change, whether it's steps or food, we give it at least 2 weeks to see what's changing. And really, when we say what's changing, we're looking at the trend over time, right? If you make a change and your weight drops overnight, okay, that's great. But you still want to see how it's going to change over the next couple of weeks. So we'll look at like your average weight measurements and just kind of see the trend line over time. But yeah, I think 2 weeks is good. There are just so many fluctuations that happen with that every day. It's not really a week is probably just not enough time. So a couple weeks, let your body adjust to see what it's going to do.
Yeah, I would agree completely. And like Matt said, if you're just starting out the process, I'd probably give it like 3 to 4 weeks of real consistency, but absolute minimum of 2. Because what do you really know of what's working and what's not at that point? Your body's just getting used to this new way of you living your life. So it's important to give it time. And we're looking for trends, right? We're not looking for you to see the scale weight sit where it is and then jump up and go, right, I must need to cut my calories. It's like, no, that could just be an outlier. So look at what the overall trend is doing. And of course, piggybacking on what we said here, guys, you can't see a trend if you're doing it for less than a few weeks. It's just loads of little noises. I call it, it's like noisy data. It's just not accurate. And in terms of that data, I know we've spoken about it a lot, but it's things like the scale, your measurements across the waist, photos. Actually, something we haven't discussed maybe as much is training performance.
Yeah.
How would you look at training performance in the context of making some of these decisions?
It's kind of tough, honestly, when you're cutting. Obviously, we want to try to make progress every week in the gym, whether it's adding some weight or adding a rep. At a certain point, it's going to be really difficult. I think the longer you've been in a diet and the leaner you get, the more difficult it is to continue to make progress week after week. And so if someone's just starting out or they have a lot of weight to lose, like they've got a long way to go left on their journey, I would expect them to be able to make somewhat steady progress. Maybe not every single week, but we should still see overall progress improving. And so if that stops happening early on, then we're going to want to look at like recovery, food, sleep, make sure everything's going well. But later on, if you've been dieting for a while and you're kind of stuck in the gym, I probably wouldn't factor that in too much. Again, it's very individual, but I think it's just expected. Like at a certain point, if you're in an energy deficit, you're not going to be able to build that much muscle. Your food resources are going to be limited. It gets tough. So you certainly want to watch training progress, but I wouldn't necessarily be too alarmed right away. If you feel like you're stalled or even like losing some strength in the gym is kind of normal. You weigh less, body changes a little bit, you have less leverages on certain lifts. So it's certainly worth keeping an eye on, especially if your recovery starts to drop off pretty quickly. But it is normal, unfortunately, to see things either stall or start to move backwards. I know we talked last time, I've been doing a bit of a cut myself, and some of my lifts have even gone down a bit, where weights that felt great like a couple months ago are tough for me now and I have to back off. And it's not fun. It's very frustrating, but I know it's just part of the process. And yeah, so keep an eye on that, but I wouldn't worry too much, especially if you've been dieting for a while.
Yeah, I will echo everything Matt just said. And it may be that if your recovery capabilities are decreasing, that to maintain like relative strength to decrease volume. You know, if you're doing 4 sets, drop it to 3. If you're doing 3 sets, drop it to 2, just to try and maintain some strength in those lifts, in the key lifts, right? Your big compound movements. I completely agree with everything Matt said. I will give a summary of this pod about if you feel like you're doing everything, but perhaps things are not moving, you're not seeing the progress you want. We just want to make sure that you understand these stalls are usually from small inconsistencies, not any kind of like you being broken or the calories aren't working or whatever. It's usually just accuracy with tracking data, accuracy with tracking food, and then consistency, allowing that to do the work. And remember, your testosterone levels is unlikely to be an issue for fat loss unless there's an underlying medical issue. So please stay patient, stay accurate, be methodical. And if you're stuck right now, it's not that your body's not responding. It's just that you need more clarity, more direction. And once you understand what you need to be doing and you implement a consistency, that progress, like it does at Rip Body for our clients, it starts to become more predictable. So if you want to find where your progress is potentially leaking, or you want to make sure you get off on the right foot and know what to track and when to adjust, you can get our free 15-day transformation kickstart course completely for free below this video or in the podcast notes. It'll walk you through exactly what we do at Rip Body when we're taking our clients through their journeys. But yeah, hopefully guys, this was useful for you. If there's anything that we can do to help, obviously comment or sending your questions. We're always happy to reply via email. Thank you for listening. If this helped, please do send it to a colleague or a friend. Matt, anything else you want to say to the listener?
No, I think I'm good.